Okay, we're into an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff to have a cool update for you guys from the brand Traska. Headquartered out of Jackson Beach, Florida, they were founded by John Mack with the intention of making a watch that you could wear without worrying about, a true tool watch fit for any activity. Now, in terms of how he founded Traska, he studied international business and Chinese, and he spent a semester abroad in China and learned that many of the lower tier Swiss brands actually produced their watches in China, which spurred a visit to several factories to see if this was really the case. Sure enough, he saw the big names out on the assembly line. This prompted John to turn his love for watches, Chinese, and international business into his first real entrepreneurial endeavor, Traska Watches. He graduated university in December of 2016 and pretty much hit the ground running, working on site with the factories in China to develop prototypes for the original first-gen Freediver. Now, in terms of the type of watch, of course, this is a dive watch. Some key characteristics and design. When you're looking for a diver, you're going to want water resistance. Typically through some type of screw down crown. You're going to something that's tough, legible, with a dive time bezel, and a diver's extension is always nice if on bracelets. This is their Freediver 5 or 5th generation, and this is in the carbon black layout with the date complication. Now, in terms of some of the differences in these updates, it's more of an evolution versus a revolution versus the 4th generation, but they do have a new locking mechanism that enhances bracelet security, while the now fully CNC machine to push buttons provide a more premium tactile feel. A sharper coin edge finish on the bezel produces improved grip with a crisper, more precise turn thanks to the re-engineered bezel assembly. Also, requiring twice the production time, their new style of boxed sapphire crystal allows for significantly enhanced case ergonomics that further refine the overall case silhouette. You can get this watch for $660 direct from Traska, and they were recently restocked. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, so definitely a handsome piece. I mean, it's really unoffensive, right? But it's not groundbreaking either. But, you know, that just goes to show the level of refinement over all of these iterations, really trying to find the sweet spot of, you know, its own look while also still conveying a very classic aesthetic. So in terms of the dimension, I think these are really dialed in. 40.5 millimeters in diameter. 10.5 millimeters thin, and that's the case height. And then if you include the crystal, it's actually 12 millimeters, 48 millimeters lug to lug. This is made out of 316L stainless steel with a scratch resistant hard coating. And it does have beautiful brushing here and some nice high polished chamfers, and as well as drilled lugs. Now, this box sapphire has been re-engineered, and some of you are like, hey, well, sapphire, you couldn't see it. But you know where you can see it is in the profile. Check that out. It just flows a little nicer. And also with the way that you're looking at it from straight on, you're seeing they really avoided, any milkiness. That is just the chapter ring in terms of that metal. So in terms of that gray portion, but they did a really nice job with this particular sapphire layout. So I can appreciate, again, those little nuances, and, you know, it's definitely more of the devil being in the details. So double box domed. And it does have an inner AR coating. So since it's domed on the outside and on the underside, that means you can get it at a very harsh angle here and still remain ultimately very, very legible. So another nice thing is they do have this new bezel grip, which has been sharpened, not sharp to the touch, but sharp in terms of its manufacturing. And I can say this definitely feels a little bit more crisp than previous iterations. So it has a nice tactile click to it, still quite smooth. Ooh, it's a nice one. It definitely has a fidget friendly factor to it. Now, You are also going to get a loomed ceramic insert, which is that nice glossy pattern. Let me give it a couple wipes here, just because, you know, of course, as I turned it, I got fingerprints on it. One of the drawbacks of that glossiness, but you know what? One of the positives about that glossiness is it ties into that beautiful black enamel dial. So that is gorgeous. Now, getting into the crown, it is screw down and signed and nicely sized, as you guys can see. And this case is beautifully done. You can see nice brushing here that actually matches the brushing on the actual end links, and then a nice transition into high polish where there's that nice bevel that rolls up over, and then in these contoured sides here you can see still highly polished and has a nice little contoured undercut to help with the way that this is going to wear on wrist. Inside, although you can't see it thanks to this solid case back, which a lot of dive watch enthusiasts and purists are really going to appreciate, you're going to have the Miyota 9019, which has a lower hand clearance on the hand stack, so you can get that maximum thinness over the 9015. So the 9019, again, a deliberate choice just to get you that thinner silhouette, which again I can really appreciate. Now, getting into the details of the dial, beautiful glossy black dial, applied indices, diamond cut hands. You have that nice circular date cut out at 6 o'clock with that lovely beveled edge, and of course you can choose to forego that date window, but I think it's interesting and is a bit of a feature because it ties in, right? You have the circular cutout, and then you have the circular lollipop seconds hand, and then the circular loom pip. So I think it all ties in very nicely with the balance of angular and rounded surfaces. Then getting into the water resistance, guys, this is pretty standard, 200 meters of water resistance or 660 feet. And you do also have 20 millimeter lugs, again, drilled lugs at that, female end links, which is fantastic. This is all solid, whether it be the end link or the links themselves, also fully articulated, guys. Check that out. So they aren't 3 links stuck together. You can get them all the way, which might not necessarily equal that much of a difference on wrist, but I will say when you're getting your hand in and out, having that extra amount of articulation really pays off. Also, when you're storing your piece, whether you're laying it flat or something like that, it definitely helps from that perspective, right? And if you're taking pictures of the watch, there's less likely for the links to get kinked or anything like that. But, you know, I digress. That's a little more enthusiast specific. The nice thing is you have a beautifully refined taper that starts from 20 millimeters, goes down to 16 millimeters. You do have screw in pins here. So that has a screwed construction. Very nice. This clasp is milled and is 18.2 millimeters wide, and it does have a 5-position toolless micro adjustment, and they also do provide 2 half links to really dial this in. So you can see a half link here and a half link there, and with that in combination with this beautiful clasp, check this out. I can click here, boom, even when it's all the way extended. The nice thing is it's not an eyesore. Check that out. You can hardly even tell that, I mean, you can tell from the side, but from the top angle, you can't even really tell that that is different. And then you can click it in, 1, 2, 3, 4. And of course, all the way extended would be the 5. So that's 5, then 4, 3, 2, 1. So very, very nice. But with all that said, ooh, look at that bevel. Let me give it a quick wipe. You guys gotta enjoy this. This thing is, again, just within this price point, 660 bucks, it's getting more and more competitive, guys. But when you look at this, the milled down to the buttons, right? Look at this, the nice beautiful sharp chamfer there, and it's again sharp to the eye, not to the touch. Beautiful brushing, nicely signed, you know, a cool logo, cool name. Let's get it on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, this just wears beautifully. Look at that taper. Great range of motion there. Of course, I do have a larger than average 7.5-inch wrist, but you can also see that it's quite round, so it's not like it's really flat, wide, and accommodating. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, you're going to get some perspective distortion, and it's going to appear a little bit larger than it actually is, right? So what I like to do is keep my wrist nice and low, and then just tighten up the frame here so you guys can still get a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio as to how this may render while sitting on your own wrist. And you guys can see beautifully centered there, you know, and that 48mm lug to lug is really well tailored. Check that out. And look how thin that still sits. Very, very nice. Yes. Nice and clean. And I get it, guys. Some of you might be thinking this is a bit boring. Well, this is the most boring color combination, is the black on black. I've definitely have reviewed other iterations with different dial combinations, and I felt like this one, they finally got to a place where I think they could be even competitive with just the black on black, where they're not even you know, interworking any fun color combinations, which I wouldn't say can be a crutch, but can be such a huge incentive for a young micro brand to capitalize on certain colorways. And I think, again, the design and the execution, the value proposition at the price point really just speaks for itself. And I think, yeah, even with the more monochromatic layout, this thing is a real winner. And I think it's also well timed, especially with that new monochromatic black bay that I recently reviewed. Even though it's advertised as 41, it's 40 across the case and 40.5 across the bezel. So in terms of footprint, it's very, very similar. So with that said, let's actually get this off the wrist, set up for some loom shots, the light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Oh, yes. Really, really nice, bright, thickly applied BGW9 loom, guys. Really fantastic. Wow. Breathe that in darkness. Very, very legible, even down to the 60-second counter. So very, very cool. But one thing I always like to work in is a bit of a low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting, guys. And even if we get into some harsh lighting, which typically could expose any types of production defects, all you guys are going to see here is a really clean, well executed piece. Look at how uniform the light glides over the brushing on the bracelet. That deep gloss luster from the polished, whether the polished surfaces are on the case or the glossy surfaces on that dial or bezel insert. It just looks really beautiful, guys. Check out the deep inky black. It's not gonna hit the wrong angle and all of a sudden become a bright gray or an anthracite tone. This has a nice modern execution to it, and I can really appreciate that. Look at this thing. It's a looker, guys. Again, and yeah, you can even dabble with some fun dial color combinations to really freshen it up and liven it up. But I think, again, even in its most basic, boring, monochromatic with date layout, this is just a really clean and attractive timepiece. So for me, guys, on the wrist, closing thoughts, we'll start with on the wrist. Nice proportions, very comfortable and balanced wear. Hard coating adds confidence for daily adventures, of course. In terms of model variants, you can get it in carbon black, arctic white, mint green, or sun-bleached orange. Definitely check the site links for availability, because they can, they can go in and out of stock. And in terms of comparable models, there are a lot of options out there in this price range, guys, with similar movements, with similar specs. But I would say, where the Freediver really stands out are those qualities of being the hard coating, the super well built and executed bracelet and clasp. Those just jump out at me, right? And not every brand has that. Not every brand needs that, to be perfectly honest. But when you are in that search for something and you really want to be very value forward and you just want to feel like, hey, I'm going to spend my money, I want to spend it with a brand that's really working to earn my dollar, I have to say, I think Traska does a really good job of that. So for me, guys, bottom line, great vintage inspired looks that continue to add distance from homage-based stylings while having features you'd expect in watches costing a whole lot more, even from other comparable independent microbrands, to be quite honest, right? Because there are some independent microbrands that are definitely creeping more into that luxury, price tier. And it's nice to see brands like Traska that are still hanging out underneath $1,000, but still giving you a watch that feels like it can compete, especially when you start comparing it to more mainstream timepieces. I mean, you lay this next to a Tissot, a Mito, a Certina, a Longines even, I would say. And this really gives you a lot of bang per buck, and I think it gives a lot of those mainstream Swiss options a real run for their money. And then, of course, you put it next to a Seiko. I mean, you're going to be spending a lot more money to find a Seiko that is comparable to this. And I mean, I already did a comparison with my Marine Master, my SJE 101, the modern Marine Master 200. And yeah, although that is a nicer watch, it also costs a lot more. Here, you're definitely saving. So there's a lot to appreciate there. And again, even when you think about it against like the new Metis Black Bay 41, I think this still compares pretty good, considering it is much less expensive, and you're going to be getting, better lume. You're getting a ceramic bezel insert, and yeah, you're not going to get a manufacturer movement that's Metis certified or anything like that, but you're getting a lot of the other features, right? And you even still have your choice to either put a date in or not put a date in. So I just dig that, and you don't have to worry about any, different bracelet options like with faux rivets. You're just getting a great option that really just does it all. So with that said, let me know what you all think in the comments below. Another huge shout out to Traska for sending this piece in for me to share with you guys. They've always been great supporters of the channel. And yeah, let me know what you all think. If you like the video, please do it like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.